lives better, visit medfitnessprogram.com. We're going to jump right in on our main message this evening, which is that 80% of adults are struggling with an unhealthy body composition. And so what does this mean? It means that they either have too much body fat, too high of a percent body fat, or too little muscle to really live an optimal life from a health standpoint. Now, the driving force behind this, let's be clear about this, the driving force behind this pandemic of unhealthy body composition is clearly our food environment. Nobody wakes up on Tuesday morning and says, hey, Richard, my goal is to gain body fat this year, or my goal is to overeat at 3:30 after work. Nobody says that, but this has been an overriding trend in the United States for 50 years now. And so I want to be clear, this is an environmental issue that is making it almost impossible for the average adult to achieve a healthy body composition. So tonight we're sharing 5 evidence-based action steps to help you begin to get into action with managing your body composition, whether it's losing body fat, gaining muscle, and or a combination of those two to improve the quality and health of your overall life. So let's start with number 1, guys. The first one is the central pillar of everything we're doing. People who are successful managing their body composition add accountability to their lifestyle. What do I mean by this? When you think about all of the behaviors that go into a healthy body composition, which is mainly eating and exercise, they in some way, shape, or form have added structure and accountability for those habits. Now, this can look a lot of different ways. It could be working directly with a health coach who you make a commitment to on a weekly basis. It might be working with a personal trainer on a weekly basis who's also holding you accountable. It might be using a biosensor such as your Apple Watch or an app on your mobile phone to give you feedback on what you're doing. But think about it this way. If you're going to live a lifestyle that is inconsistent with how 80% of Americans are living, it only makes sense that you have some accountability, some support to move in a direction that, again, is inconsistent with how 80% of Americans are living. And this is not an issue of willpower or self-control. It's an unsupportive environment that makes it, again, almost impossible to do the things that we need to do on a daily basis. So step number 1, action step number 1 is to bring accountability into your lifestyle for the habits that matter most. And again, there's a variety of ways to do this, but you need some accountability. It could be your neighbor, it could be your coworker, it could be a family member, it could be the coach you pay, it could be your trainer. There's a lot of different ways to divvy this up, but that commitment to someone else on executing on a behavior that matters is a critically important step in living that healthier lifestyle to improve your body composition. So people are successful. Number 1, they maintain accountability for their lifestyle. And of course, I work with a health coach every week myself, who I report my eating habits, my physical activity, my strength training, everything goes to her. And we make plans and set goals, and she holds me accountable for those health habits on an ongoing basis. So number 1 is accountability. It's unlikely that most adults will pull this off without some level of structure and accountability on a weekly basis. Number 2 is that they self-monitor these habits. Now, this is simply the research term for record keeping. They keep a record of key factors. So let's look at body weight as just a simple example. Adults who step on the scale look at and confront that number and then keep a record of it, whether it's in their app, in paper, whatever it is, keep a record of it and know what that weight is. They do better at avoiding weight gain than people who don't step on the scale, who don't confront that number, who don't keep a record of that piece of data. Now, the same is true for physical activity. The same is true for strength training. The same is true for healthy eating and all the ingredients that go into that. So self-monitoring can be argued as being the single most important thing you can do other than directly working with the coach. It's like having a virtual coach. If you're using your mobile phone and you've got data on it and you look at, oh gosh, here's where I am with these behaviors, here I am with that behaviors, that 10 seconds of feedback of seeing where you are nudges you in the right direction with those health habits. So people are successful, they self-monitor these health habits, whatever it looks. For years, I used paper to track my health habits, but now, of course, I'm using the HMR app on my phone, and that's handy because that's right at my fingertips 24 hours a day. So whether it's an app on a phone, whether it's something on your biosensor, your Apple Watch, whether it's a piece of paper, whether it's a calendar, whatever method is useful for you, whether it's tracking some data on your workout chart, having a record of the health habits that matter is critically important because it allows you to see reality and to make decisions and adjust to what's happening in your lifestyle. So it's equivalent to getting consistent feedback through the day. Imagine if I showed up as a virtual coach every 5 to 6 hours in your life and I gave you an update. Susan, you've had this many fruits and vegetables today. Your weight was down half a pound this week. You've walked 8 miles. You did one strength workout. Imagine that quick 30-second confrontation from your virtual health coach. That clearly makes a difference, and we have a mountain of research to show that this does help people to live healthier lifestyles. And the threshold I'm going to recommend here, when we look at the data in terms of how often do you need to do this, people that enter data into a self-monitoring system, again, paper, app, whatever it is, people that do that 3 times a day, we see are the most successful at benefiting from it. So when I'm working with my HMR app, I'm trying to log data in at least 3 times a day and sometimes more often as I'm able to do that. So step number 2 here is that successful people self-monitor the health habits and they confront where they're at with those health habits on a daily basis and ideally 3 times a day. Number 3, no surprise here, guys, is that people who have healthier body compositions, they're physically active every single day. And so they're moving their body through space is how we like to describe this. This can be formal physical activity. It can be informal physical activity. Of course, they're also strength training, so that goes into this bucket. It's impossible to age and prevent muscle loss unless you are strength trained. So we're putting strength training into the physical activity bucket. But what I'm going to suggest here is that most people overlook the true benefit this provides. Yes, are you burning calories if you go take a brisk 30-minute walk? Yes, you're burning calories. Do those calories contribute to the overall success that you're going to achieve? They do contribute, but on a daily basis, it's a very small contribution. On a weekly basis, it's a very small contribution. Where those calories add up is over long spans of time. The true promise of physical activity and exercise is the synergy that it provides with other health habits. And I'd say that probably 95% of consumers don't understand this. They think that if I'm either going to exercise or not exercise, that's where it begins and ends, which is completely wrong. If you make a decision to go exercise, let's say you come in for a strength workout and you go through a demanding, tough, full body strength workout in 25, 30 minutes, the fact that you engaged in that behavior increases the probability that you will engage in other health habits. Scientists call this a gateway behavior, so it's connected to other good decisions. Imagine if I went with you for a nice brisk walk tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. At the end of the walk, we're not going to say, hey, now that we got that walk in, let's be sure to eat a dozen donuts. Let's go to Dunkin' Donuts right now that we did the walk. No, it's actually the opposite. People who do that, who make that commitment, who invest that time in formal or informal exercise, actually are less likely to engage in the bad decisions that are so easy to encounter on a daily basis. So I'm going to say it's 2 pieces. One, physical activity is burning calories over time, over weeks and months and years is where this really adds up. It's not a big deal on a daily, weekly basis. But where it really shines is by influencing the other decisions that you make with your health habits. I've never met anyone, and I've been doing this professionally for 32 years. I was in college in 1983 when I was working at the YMCA, and I started training people almost 40 years ago. And so I've never met anyone who has made the decision to exercise, has made the decision to be active, and then in response to that goes and eats a bowl of ice cream because of it. I mean, of course it could happen, but in general, this pushes you in a different direction. It gets you moving in a positive, healthful direction, and it also changes brain chemistry. We now know that physical activity can modify the chemical makeup of your brain, which also decreases what's called abnormal stress on brain chemistry. So this is good for a behavioral reason, and we call that synergy. It drives other health habits that are critically important to managing your body composition. So that's number two, is that successful people are physically active on a weekly basis, and that of course includes strength training. Number four is that they're consuming a low energy density diet. When we look at the diet of the average American, the number one risk factor for whether or not they're gonna gain weight in the next 12 months is whether or not they're consuming a lot of energy dense foods. Now, I'm speaking technically here. What is an energy dense food? It's a food that has more calories per bite or more calories per ounce. So what's an example here? I could pick up an apple and say, well, I can choose between the apple, or I can go get an apple pie at McDonald's. That apple pie at McDonald's is going to be about 125 calories per ounce, effectively 125 calories per bite, versus the apple, a low energy density food, is going to be 15 calories per ounce. So the biggest risk factor here for weight gain is diets that are high in energy dense foods. And so what you want to do here is to make the shift to low energy density foods. And of course, I just gave you an idea of what are the lowest foods out there. We've all heard it before, but sometimes we tend to ignore this reality. Vegetables and fruits, whole vegetables and fruits, are the lowest calorie and energy density foods on the planet. They're all basically 90% water, very low in calories overall. And so when you stop eating veggies and fruits in high quantities, and other normal everyday food starts to work into your diet, which is very easy to have happen, the energy density of your diet goes up, which means you're getting more calories per bite every bite of every meal all day long. So the easiest way to shift this and to reduce the energy density of your diet is to eat more whole vegetables and fruits as a way of pulling down the energy density of your diet and as a way of displacing other foods. This is not about learning not to eat brownies. Once you know how to eat a brownie, you can eat a brownie. We don't have to teach you how to do that. But what I can't do, I can't teach you how to not eat a brownie. That would be me handcuffing you only to have you break down in tears because you'd eat the brownie without your hands. So you can't unlearn something that you've already learned. But what you can do is displace it and crowd it out with another health habit. And so in this case, it's veggies and fruits. As you push those up in your diet, both at meals and at snack time, you effectively crowd out the more calorie and energy dense foods out of your diet. You push it out of your diet without having to focus on what not to do. We call this a to-do approach to improving your diet. So number 4 here is a critical one. People who are successful managing their body composition and losing body fat, of course, consume a low energy density diet. Means that they're eating foods that have very few calories per ounce, very few calories per bite, which the biggest, most clear, direct example here is whole fruits and vegetables, which are abundant in water and incredibly low in calories when we compare them to what the average adult is eating, which is between 100 to 135 calories an ounce. Vegetables are between 5 to 25 calories per ounce. So they're always a win. There's no downside. More is better when it comes to eating those in your diet on a day-to-day basis. So that's strategy number 4. Action step number 4 is you're consuming low energy density diet so you can be physically full on fewer calories. It's not about being hungry. It's about being full on fewer calories by choosing the right foods. And then number 5 here is that successful individuals, they use functional foods as a way to achieve that decrease in energy density in the diet. And so the best example here would be portion-controlled meal replacements. We look at the science on meal replacement shakes, entrees, bars, all sorts of foods like that are portion and calorie controlled. These are functional foods that have been designed with a specific purpose, which is to reduce calories, and when combined with whole fruits and vegetables, these are incredibly high volume meals. As a good example, I start most mornings with a blended fruit smoothie, a meal replacement shake with water, with ice, with whole fruits, frozen and fresh, blended together. I'll almost fill the entire blender. Incredibly filling. For me, it's very good tasting. I love chocolate with strawberries and cherries and bananas. And so it's very filling, very easy, but incredibly low calorie per bite, in this case, swallowing a shake. But compared to what I could easily get into if I was having a conventional breakfast food, such as cereal or bread or any of the number of other options that are common in the United States. And so successful people use functional foods as tools in their diet as a way of helping them to reduce calories without having to overthink it, without having to take complex steps and spend a lot of time reducing calories in the overall diet. And so I think the take-home message on number 5 is one that most people aren't familiar with. When we think about changing our diet, we often think like we need to embrace the world as it is. I'm here to tell you tonight that the real world is the problem. Spending more time in the real world is why we're all suffering from a health standpoint. And so the real world is not the fix. A time out from the real world, a break from what the real world serves up is the solution. And that's what meal replacements afford us. They give us a quick, convenient, easy way to have a filling, highly nutritious food that displaces the more energy-dense processed foods that are so prevalent in the world that we live in. So these are tools. They're not the only thing that you're going to do, but they're an adjunct to your overall diet that help you to manage the day from a calorie standpoint, whether it's a meal, a snack, what have you. And so these are really the pillars, guys. These are the pillars that we usually refer to as the 5 success variables. So it's a accountability for our lifestyle. It's making ourselves accountable to someone other than ourselves. It's self-monitoring, keeping a record of the important health habits so I can get feedback and make sure I'm not living like the average American out there. I can adjust if I need to day to day. It's being physically active consistently throughout the week. Again, the big benefit here is the synergy this provides. It drives other health habits to higher levels. It's more than just the calories that you're burning, guys. And then it's, of course, consuming a diet that has a low energy density to it, which is primarily achieved through eating more whole fruits and vegetables and being full on those highly nutritious filling foods. And lastly, using meal replacements as a functional tool to help you easily organize snacks and meals that are lower in calories to give you the timeout that you need from the real world, which is incredibly unsupportive. Remember, Dr. Kelly Brownell at Yale University, in his book, Food Fight, he refers to the food environment as toxic. He now teaches at Duke, but he's well known for portraying the American environment as a toxic food environment that just doesn't help us to make decisions. We need a timeout from that environment if we're going to be successful from a big picture standpoint. That's everything tonight, guys. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for being here. I look forward to seeing you next month. In the meantime, if you're interested in strength training and you're looking for a personal trainer, MedFitness is offering 50% off a month of personal training during January. See you next time, guys.